The air in the church was thick with the scent of lilies and betrayal. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the scene in vibrant, deceptive beauty. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the soundtrack of my shattered dreams. He promised me forever. He swore it. And here I was, standing at the altar, not as the bride, but as, well, you'll see. This is the story of how I crashed his second wedding. And believe me, it was worth it. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, or found yourself fighting for justice, hit that like button and subscribe. You're going to want to hear this. It all started 5 years ago. I was head over heels for Mark. He was charming, funny, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We met in college, a whirlwind romance fueled by late-night study sessions and stolen kisses. He was the classic romantic, flowers, handwritten letters, the whole shebang. He'd talk about our future, a cozy house, kids, a dog named something goofy. He'd whisper, forever. I truly believed him. We were young, naive, and utterly in love. He proposed on a mountaintop overlooking the city, sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I said yes, of course. I could barely contain my excitement. We started planning immediately, dreaming of our perfect day. I can still feel the chill of the mountain air that evening, the way the wind whipped my hair across my face as he got down on one knee. The city lights twinkled below us, a million tiny diamonds scattered across the velvet darkness. I'd never felt so sure of anything in my life. He held out the ring, a simple but elegant solitaire, and I remember thinking it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. My hands were shaking as I reached for it, tears streaming down my face as I stammered, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He pulled me into a hug, his voice thick with emotion as he whispered, forever, baby. I promise. We spent the next few months consumed by wedding plans. We pored over magazines, visited venues, and tasted cakes until we thought we'd burst. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. We envisioned a rustic chic wedding, with fairy lights strung across the reception, a live band, and a dance floor that would stay packed all night. We discussed the guest list, the flowers, the first dance song, Forever and Always, by Taylor Swift, of course. We were building a life together, brick by loving brick. Then, things started to unravel. At first, it was subtle. The wedding planning was suddenly too much for him. He'd be late for dates, offering flimsy excuses. He'd be glued to his phone, muttering about work emergencies. I chalked it up to stress, to the pressures of adult life. I wanted to be understanding, supportive. I tried, I really did. But the distance grew. He became evasive, closed off. I remember the first time I really noticed the change. We were at a restaurant, celebrating my birthday. He was supposed to be picking up the tab, but he'd forgotten his wallet. I was left scrambling, mortified, while he stood there, sheepish, offering a weak apology. It was the beginning of a pattern. He started forgetting things, canceling plans at the last minute, making excuses for his absences. I started to feel a knot of unease in my stomach, a constant hum of anxiety that I couldn't quite shake. The cracks started showing in our financial planning. He'd accidentally overspend and then be suddenly strapped for cash, leading to more stress. I thought it was just a rough patch and tried to suggest solutions, which he would just shrug off. The wedding planning stalled. We argued. Then, he disappeared. The arguments became more frequent, more heated. We'd bicker over everything, from the seating arrangements to the color of the napkins. The tension between us was palpable, a silent storm brewing beneath the surface. I tried to talk to him, to understand what was happening, but he was always dismissive, shutting me down with a wave of his hand and a mumbled apology. I started to feel like I was walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing, afraid of another fight. He claimed to need space, to sort himself out. Said he was feeling overwhelmed and couldn't handle the pressure. The pressure he had created, of course. He said we could revisit the wedding plans once he had a better handle on things. He took a business trip out of state and didn't even call for a week. He was gone for months. He promised he'd be back. I waited, heartbroken and confused, clinging to the hope that we could salvage what we had. I knew something wasn't right, but I was scared. Scared of what I might find if I really looked. Those months were a blur of sleepless nights, endless tears, and gut-wrenching self-doubt. I replayed every conversation, every interaction, searching for a clue, a sign, anything that would explain what was happening. I kept rereading our old love letters, clinging to T.H. E. memory of the man I thought I knew. I tried to convince myself that this was just a phase, a temporary glitch in our perfect plan. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Eventually, I got a phone call. Not from him, but from a friend of a friend. They had seen him with another woman at a jewelry store, buying a ring. A woman who was very obviously not me. The world tilted on its axis. The betrayal was a physical blow. Everything I thought I knew, everything we had planned, was a lie. I remember the moment I got the call. I was at work, staring at a spreadsheet, when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was hesitant, filled with a nervous energy. They started by saying, "I don't know if this is my place," but then they told me what they'd seen. The ring, the woman, the stolen glances. It was all too much. My hands started shaking, and I felt a cold wave of nausea wash over me. I excused myself from my office, went to the ladies' room, and just collapsed. I confronted him. He denied everything. He tried to gaslight me, twisting the situation, making me question my sanity. He said I was being paranoid, that I was making things up. That was when I knew I needed to leave. I ended things with him, packed my bags, and tried to move on. I tried to heal. I was in so much pain. The confrontation was a blur of accusations, denials, and tears. I showed him the information, the evidence, the proof. But he didn't flinch. He looked me in the eye and spun a web of lies so intricate and so convincing that for a moment, I almost believed him. Almost. But then I remembered the woman in the jewelry store. I remembered the late nights, the excuses, the growing distance. I remembered the promises, the lies, the shattered dreams. I knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't trust him, and I couldn't forgive him. It broke me to walk away, but I knew it was the only thing I could do. Packing my bags felt like packing up my entire life. Every item was a painful reminder of what I had lost. His clothes, his things, all had to go. It was an unbearable weight. As I walked out the door, I had a moment of clarity, a stark understanding of the kind of person he really was. I never wanted to see him again. Months later, I got the dreaded save the date. His second wedding. To the woman I was sure he'd been seeing all along. I was supposed to just let it go. Pretend it never happened? No. Absolutely not. The save the date arrived in a crisp, ivory envelope. I remember holding it in my hand, feeling a mixture of rage and disbelief. How dare he? How dare he move on so quickly, so easily, as if our entire relationship had been a fleeting whim. I almost crumpled the card in my fist, but I knew I couldn't. I had to know the date, the time, the place. I had to know everything. The invitation was a crisp, expensive card, taunting me with its elegance. A beautiful, elegant wedding at an upscale venue. The audacity. I considered ignoring it, letting it all fade away. But the anger, the pain, the utter injustice, it festered. He'd stolen my future, my dreams, my trust. And he was going to get away with it? No. I sat with the invitation for days, wrestling with my emotions. Part of me wanted to forget he existed, to move on and build a happy life for myself. But another part, the part that had been wounded and betrayed, refused to let it go. It demanded justice, demanded that he be held accountable for his actions. It was a battle between my head and my heart was winning. I started to plan. I didn't tell a single soul. My friends would have talked me out of it. I needed to do this my way, on my own terms. I'm not proud of everything I did, but I am proud of what I didn't do. I didn't lose myself in a spiral of anger or negativity. I channeled all that energy into something constructive. My goal? To show him that actions have consequences, and that the promises he made to me, and then so easily broke, meant something. My first step was information gathering. I had to find out everything. I learned the exact date, time, and location of the wedding. I knew the venue, the guest list, everything. It was a meticulously planned event, and I needed to know the details to ensure my plan would work. I'd spent weeks stalking his social media, gathering information. I even accidentally ran into a caterer and slipped him a 20 for inside scoop on the menu. I immersed myself in the details of the wedding. I spent hours online, researching the venue, the caterer, the florist. I studied the guest list, trying to gauge who would be supportive, who would be shocked, and who would simply be embarrassed. I had to be prepared for anything. The planning process consumed me, but it also gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of control. The day arrived. The wedding. I dressed. It wasn't easy to get ready. I put on a gorgeous, floor-length, red dress. Not a screamy red, but a confident, bold red. The kind of red that screams, "You messed up." I curled my hair and applied makeup that was both elegant and undeniably striking. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who was ready to face her demons. Picking out the dress was a cathartic experience. I tried on countless outfits, searching for something that would make me feel strong, powerful, and undeniably feminine. Finally, I found it, the red dress. It was the perfect blend of elegance and defiance. As I put it on, I felt a transformation. I was no longer the heartbroken, betrayed woman. I was a warrior. I had a friend on the inside, a surprisingly supportive waiter who I had convinced. He was my eyes and ears. He knew my plan, and he was ready to help. I reached out to a few people, explaining my situation and my plan, looking for someone to give me information and support. I found an unlikely ally in one of the waiters, a kind-hearted man named Michael. He listened to my story with empathy, and when I asked for his help, he didn't hesitate. He became my eyes and ears on the inside, providing me with crucial information and helping to ensure my plan's success. As the ceremony began, I waited. The vows were being exchanged. I could only imagine the lies being spoken. Then, at the crucial moment, right after the I do's, just as the newly married couple were about to share their first kiss, I walked into the room. The walk to the church was the longest journey of my life. I felt a knot of fear in my stomach, but I pushed it down. I couldn't falter now. I parked my car a few blocks away, took a deep breath, and started walking. The street seemed to stretch endlessly, and every step was a struggle against the tide of doubt. But as I approached the venue, I felt my resolve harden. I was ready. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I walked with a quiet determination, directly towards the altar. Silence fell. Every single person in that room turned to look at me. My heart hammered. I took a deep breath and spoke. I remember the moment I stepped into the church. The organ music had just swelled, the bride was radiant, and the groom looked utterly content. The guests were all smiling and laughing, enjoying this carefully constructed illusion. As I walked through the doors, the music cut out, and every head turned. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of my own heart. "Mark," I said, my voice clear and steady. "Do you remember me?" The bride gasped. Her eyes widened. Mark's face drained of color. He froze. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He looked at me, his face frozen in a mask of horror. I could almost feel his mind racing, trying to assess the situation, trying to figure out how to get out of this. He was stunned, speechless. "I'm here," I continued, projecting my voice for everyone to hear, "because you haven't kept a promise, not a single one. You told me forever, remember? You promised me a future. You broke my heart, and then you just moved on." My voice held steady as I spoke, and with every word, I felt a release, a weight lifting from my shoulders. I was no longer the victim, I was the avenger. I wanted everyone to hear what I had to say, to see the truth, to understand the betrayal. I walked right up to him, looked him dead in the eye and continued, "You remember the wedding you planned, the one you promised me? And the house, and the children, and the dog. Do you remember?" He was speechless. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I could see the panic in his eyes, the frantic realization that everything he had worked so hard to build was about to come crashing down. I wanted him to feel the pain he had caused me. I wanted him to understand the depth of his betrayal. Then, I revealed the first part of my plan. "You know, I brought a little something to commemorate our 5 years of dating and our almost wedding." My friend, the waiter, brought out a cake. And not just any cake. A 6-foot-tall replica of the wedding cake that was originally planned for my wedding. But the best part? On top of the cake was a figurine. Not of the happy couple. It was a figurine of me, standing at the altar wearing the same dress that I was wearing, looking completely furious. And under my figure, the cake read, "You can't escape forever." I watched as the waiter, Michael, wheeled in the cake, the crowd's expressions shifting from shock to confusion, then to understanding. The cake was a masterpiece, a perfect replica of the cake Mark and I had chosen. The figurine, wearing my dress, was a final, devastating blow. The bride was a sobbing mess. People were whispering. Chaos erupted. I then pulled out the second part of my revenge, the grand finale. The bride's reaction was exactly as I had expected. Her carefully constructed facade shattered, her tears flowing freely. She turned on Mark, her voice filled with anger and betrayal. "Piopi." Lu were whispering, pointing, and gasping. It was the chaos I had hoped for, the unraveling of his carefully constructed life. I had prepared a slideshow. It started with pictures of us, happy and in love. Then came the photos of his betrayal. The other woman. The jewelry store. All playing across the giant screen behind the altar. I had it all. Proof that he had been a liar and a cheater. Every photo, every text, everything was there on full display for all to see. I had worked tirelessly on the slideshow, carefully selecting the images and arranging them in a way that would tell the story of his betrayal in the most compelling way possible. It started with pictures of us, happy and in love, and slowly progressed to the evidence of his infidelity. Every photo, every text, every detail of his deception was laid bare for all to see. The screen behind the altar flickered to life, and the images began to play. The slideshow was a silent but powerful narrator, displaying the evidence of his betrayal for everyone to see. The photos were of a high quality, and everyone could easily discern the truth. The bride stormed off, yelling at Mark, accusing him of being a liar. Mark was still frozen, a statue of stunned silence. Guests began to mutter and leave. Then, as I turned to leave, the music, previously so joyous, switched to the opening bars of the song we had chosen for our first dance. Forever and Always, by Taylor Swift. And at that moment, I burst out laughing. I could hear the bride's screams, the furious accusations, the crumbling of the facade. I watched as Mark remained frozen in place, his face a mask of horror and regret. I turned to leave, feeling a sense of relief, a sense of triumph, but the music playing through the speakers made me lose it. The look on his face. It was priceless. Pure, unadulterated shock and regret. The venue owner demanded I leave. But I had done what I came to do. I had exposed him, humiliated him, and stripped him of his perfect facade. As I walked away, I heard the distant sound of yelling, the crumpling of vows, the sound of a life imploding. He tried to stop me, tried to apologize. But it was too late. As I walked away, I could hear the venue owner yelling at me to leave. I ignored them, feeling a sense of exhilaration I hadn't felt in years. I saw him, finally moving, trying to catch up, but I kept walking. He yelled for me to stay, for me to listen. I turned to him, just before leaving, and said the words I had been waiting to say for months. I'm so glad you got a different forever. You didn't deserve mine. I turned to him, just before leaving, and gave him my final words. The words I had rehearsed over and over again in my head. The words that would finally put an end to our story. I left, and didn't look back. I walked out of the church, the weight on my shoulders finally lifted. I ignored the looks, the whispers, the shouts. I just kept walking, the red dress flowing behind me like a banner of victory. The aftermath was a whirlwind. The story went viral. My phone blew up with messages of support. News outlets wanted interviews. Everyone wanted to know how I'd done it. I refused them all. I didn't do it for fame or attention. I did it for closure. For myself. The days and weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages of support, congratulations, and even offers of friendship flooded my inbox. The story spread like wildfire, and I was thrust into the spotlight, whether I liked it or not. But I stayed true to my goal, my peace of mind and my need for closure. I finally felt free. The anger had dissipated, replaced by a sense of calm. I had reclaimed my power. I had faced my pain and come out stronger on the other side. I am doing much better now. I focused on myself, on my career, on building the life I deserved. I moved on, and found someone who respected and cherished me. I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, pursuing my dreams with renewed vigor. I made new friends, rekindled old friendships, and surrounded myself with people who loved and supported me. I started to heal, and I slowly began to believe in myself again. As for Mark, the last I heard, he and his new bride had gone their separate ways. I hope he learned a valuable lesson about honesty and the importance of keeping promises. I never saw him again. I heard rumors, of course, of his crumbling life. He was alone, isolated, and living with the consequences of his actions. I didn't feel sorry for him. He had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. So, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or did he deserve it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have your own revenge stories, I want to hear them. Share them. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true stories of revenge and triumph. Thanks for watching, and remember, never let anyone steal your forever.